Welcome back, guys, or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the Honda Ridgeline, likely the most controversial truck ever created. It's loved by its owners, it's despised and questioned by the rest of the truck community, but although this is one of the best mid-sized trucks you can buy, having functional vents up front, a real V6 under the hood, more cup holders, cargo space, and payload than any other mid-sized truck, even tailing it off with dual exhaust in the rear, it's not perfect, it has its flaws. So today we are going to talk about the 7 main issues or the 7 main concerns that I have if you are considering a Honda Ridgeline. Because before you sign on the dotted line, I want you guys to be informed and aware of what you might be getting yourself into before it's too late. And if you get anything out of this video, please consider liking it. Comment your thoughts and opinions below. Do you agree with my list? Do you disagree? I would love to know. Let's have a good discussion down below. And subscribe if you haven't already. Otherwise, let's get right into it. The first main issue that I have with the Ridgeline relates to its ground clearance. These are rated for 7.6 inches at the lowest, which, just for reference, a Subaru, any Subaru, even a Crosstrek, has over an inch more ground clearance than this. Some mid-sized trucks, if it's like a ZR2 Bison, those have up to about 5 inches more than this, which I know that is the extreme, but 7.6 inches with that long of a wheelbase is kind of stretching it. The breakover angle is not very good, so you really can't go on uneven terrain before you risk high centering this vehicle. The departure is not fantastic, although this does have a bigger bed than most average full 4-door mid-sized trucks. The bed is a little bit longer, so is the departure angle. It's not fantastic. You could also hit the tailgate, you could hit the bumper. You got to be careful with that. And then if we come around to the front, actually, the approach angle might not be that much worse than some other mid-sized trucks, but overall the ground clearance and the angles of this really limit you if you are going to take this off-road. You got to be careful because it can't do what some of the other mid-sized trucks can. Issue number 2 relates to the fact that this Honda Ridgeline only has all-wheel drive. It does not have 4-wheel drive or a low-gear transfer case. So because this is basically the truck version, or like the Baja version of a Honda Passport, you got to be careful that you don't take this on any trails or any off-roading or any 4x4 all-wheel drive adventures beyond what you would take something like a crossover, some unibody vehicle, which this is. And you don't have a low gear, so you're not going to be doing a lot of rock climbing, which again, you will be stopped by the ground clearance and the breakover angle before you get too far anyways. But keep in mind, even though this is a truck, even though it has a truck bed and, has some black plastic cladding signaling that it could go off-road, that it could kick up some rocks and debris, you are limited by the fact that this is just a unibody with less ground clearance and a all-wheel drive system that is going to kick in when necessary. It's not going to be as competent at delivering power and torque vectoring as some of the other systems, and you certainly don't have a locker. So keep that in mind. You do have to be careful, and don't take this anywhere that you wouldn't take any other long wheelbase crossover. Issue number 3 is very subjective, but the looks of this, it looks like a truck minivan, which it basically is, especially if you look at the interior of one of these. But it doesn't look as aggressive, even with the front arrow, even with the projector and halogen headlights, even with the fog lights down below, and only having a mild front splitter for air dampening, which is, better than some of the mid-sized trucks. It doesn't look aggressive enough to compete with a lot of the other mid-sized trucks. Whether it's right or wrong, most automakers these days are making their trucks look bold and squared off and very rectangular again. This thing, this generation has been around for a few years. It'll likely be replaced for 2026 or 2027, but it's very cute. It's very round, and you just have to be aware that this doesn't look at all like the other mid-sized trucks. Sure, it has 4 doors and a bed, but the shape of it is just kind of off, which does play a little bit for the amazing cargo capacity, the amazing innovation that this has, which if you watch my video on the 7 things I love about this platform, you'll see where a lot of that comes in handy. You can even look at how much extra room is behind the windows, making the cabin bigger. This is also a few inches wider than all the other mid-sized trucks, so it is way more spacious and everything, but they don't sell very well. And because people buy off of emotions, especially when they're spending $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 on a vehicle, which is pretty absurd these days, I think Honda would have sold a lot more units of this if instead of just doing the easy thing, which is copying the Passport front end, I think if they did make this a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more competitive to the other mid-sized trucks, this probably could have doubled its sales. So just something for Honda to think about. Personally, I don't mind. I don't think it's trying to be something it's not, but I do think if it looked a little bit better, if the angles are a little bit sharper, it might have sold a lot better than it has. Issue number 4 relates to the gas tank and the MPG. This has a driver's side gas tank, which I absolutely love, and it is 19.5 gallons, which these days is about a gallon and a half bigger than a lot of the other competitors, like the Tacoma, which is now only an 18-gallon tank. But this truck, with its big thirsty V6, is only rated for 18 city, 23 on the highway, so realistically, you're probably going to be getting about 20 miles per gallon combined. So you do have, 400 miles of range or so realistically on a full tank of gas. But that is a thirsty V6. That is a thirsty truck to only be averaging about 20 when now some of the hybrid Tacomas and some of the other trucks can get in the low 20s. Heck, even a diesel 3-liter LZO full-size Silverado Sierra can get up to 30 miles per gallon. So I do think Honda could have done a little bit better with this, maybe even making it a hybrid and tucking the electric motor and battery somewhere. They could have done a little bit better, giving this even more power, which power is really not a concern on this platform, but the gas mileage certainly is, especially for a unibody vehicle. Issue number 5 is under the hood, and it's actually one of the biggest concerns depending on who you are and what you value. But this V6, while historically being a Honda V6, expected to be very reliable, there's 3 main issues with this platform, this powertrain. Even though, normal driving conditions, when it's working well, it's working awesome, it is big. 3.5 liters these days is surprisingly big, especially where it's transversely mounted. There's not a ton of room to work on this engine under the hood, and the serpentine belt is on the passenger side, so it is going to be kind of tight. You can see there's an engine bracket right there holding it to the chassis, so you are going to have to work a little bit harder to get the serpentine belt off of this than on any other midsize truck where the serpentine belt is right up front like a longitudinally mounted engine. But issue number 2 is these V6s have cylinder deactivation, which Honda does seem to do cylinder deactivation way better than GM. But honestly, that's not a system I personally want to pay for. That is a system that concerns me when half the cylinders shut down. You have a more aggressive, more dynamic cam profile. The cam lobes are different, and you're more likely to have engine failure way down the line, especially if you don't maintain the vehicle well and do your oil changes. And then the third issue, this has a timing belt, not a timing chain. So every 90,000 miles or so, you are going to have to take off the cover. You are going to have to take off all the accessories, and you are going to have to change out the belt so that it doesn't drop a valve and destroy the engine dropping into the cylinder, into the piston. So that's not really a problem. You just need to remember to do your maintenance, to pay probably $1,000 or $2,000 every 90,000 miles to have Honda do it if you don't do it yourself. But that is a big issue, and that is a maintenance item that basically very few other vehicles these days have. Issue number 6 does relate to the powertrain once again, but this is more about the driving dynamics of it. The V6 peaks out at 280 horsepower, and in the higher RPM, it peaks out at 263 or 264 pound-feet of torque. So it's not the most powerful, and in fact, that's probably the lowest horsepower of any modern V6 or turbo 4-cylinder midsize truck. So I will give it maybe a 20 roll right here, let you see how it does. Okay, so it does kind of boogie along, but it's less power than the other ones, and I'm at altitude, so I would imagine this would feel a lot better 4,000 feet lower, closer to sea level. But it doesn't make the power that the other ones have, and it doesn't make the same exact low-end torque, although it still does actually feel pretty good. Being a bigger displacement engine, there's a little bit more torque on demand, and it's not having to rev out as high as maybe a smaller V6 would. And just for kicks and giggles, we're going to get up to highway speed, 60 miles an hour, and we are going to see how this does. Full throttle now. It definitely sounds a little bit less happy in the higher RPMs, although it does continue to pull throughout the whole RPM band. So that is cool. 260 torque, 280 horse. It does pretty good in this platform, but a little bit more power would be nice. And then issue number 7, my final issue for this video, is the safety features. Although it does have lane keep assist, adaptive cruise, and all of that type of stuff, it doesn't work as well as some other vehicles. Not as good as Toyota Safety Sense 3.0, not as good as Subaru, probably about on par with Mazda, but the safety features are just not fantastic. This thing doesn't keep you straight down your lane nearly as well as some other vehicles do, and it's also not a top safety pick, which for being a unibody platform, that is kind of the minimum that I expect. Being based off of the Honda Passport, it really should be. Even the new 4th generation Tacoma, which is body on frame now, that is finally the first top safety pick truck. This is, I believe, a 5-star crash test rated vehicle. It handles well, drives well, does really well. Being a unibody, it is comfortable and everything. but it's not a top safety pick, so it doesn't protect you in accidents, and the safety features right here don't prevent you from getting into accidents quite as well as some other vehicles. But thankfully, visibility is fantastic. The windows are huge, even front and rear and the back. The mirrors on the side are great. You can see right down the center. So you do have better visibility than most other trucks, so that does make up for some of the safety feature issues I have. So ultimately, I really don't think you can go wrong with the Honda Ridgeline. If you are interested in this, and my list of 7 issues with it did not scare you away, overall, it's a Honda product. It's going to keep its value. It's going to keep you fairly safe. It's going to do a lot of things very well. And there's a lot of really good Japanese engineering that went into this platform to make it an overall good vehicle. It's also based off of the much higher selling, higher volume Passport, because SUVs in general are a little bit more useful than trucks, having some close storage, having a bigger backseat area. This vehicle really does a lot of things well. And if my list didn't scare you away, I highly recommend you guys test one of these for yourself. Give it a test drive, but also check out the competition. Check out the Frontier, the Tacoma, the Colorado, all the other midsize trucks to make sure you are buying the right one for you. And if you got anything out of this video or you appreciate the work that went into it, please consider liking it. Comment those thoughts and opinions below. I love reading them. I love commenting and responding to you guys and just connecting down below. And also check out the comments, even if you don't want to comment. Just you might learn some new information down there by the actual owners, by people who have a lot more experience with this than I do. And if you got anything out of this video, please consider subscribing and watching a few others. With that said, I wish you guys the best. I hope you take care, and until next time, see ya.